Welcome back to the Two Dudes, Three Legs podcast with your host, Zach Dingee.
Tony Cappelletti.
Today we're sitting with Pat Clark, who owns Precision Pro Wash. He has 9 locations in 8 states. He runs Sales Boot Camp Conference, which is a big thing coming up on March 30th. We're going to talk a little bit about how he came from foster care, became from a van to a big bus, right? And then his whole sales entrepreneurship game and how it shaped him in foster care. So let's start there.
Oh, you fucking gonna be famous.
Guys are looking sharp.
Zach Dingee,
Tony
Two
Cappelletti.
Dudes, Three Legs podcast, where we share business tips, interview experts,
And travel the world.
This week on Two Dudes, Three Legs.
Start there. Obviously, there's a lot of stereotypes around foster care. How did that help shape you to become the salesman, the entrepreneur, the business owner you are today?
Man, so I really think it's the hardships, right? Like the people telling me that I couldn't do it.
Yes.
You know, my teachers were like, "Look, you can't make enough money to support a family," and it really hit home for me because I'm like, "Who the heck are you telling me? You know, I can't do something?"
Who said that to you?
My principal, my teachers. Like, I mean, they said I was going to end up in dead or in jail by 18.
Oh my God.
You know, as I was growing up, they were like, when I started dating my wife now, they were like, "You wouldn't make enough money to support a family." And I'm like, what the heck? And so this all came from living in the largest trailer park in Dover Plains, New York, right? My dad was never in the picture. He left my mom. My mom had a mental illness. She had mental schizophrenia. So when I would go to school, she held me back from school. I remember she bought me the Hooked on Phonics. And I burned it. I burned it. I melted that thing. And it was like $300 back then was like, my mom's living on like $125 a month, maybe, right? On Social Security. And I feel like really bad now, but she bought it to me, but I was like, I don't care at that point, right? And so going into foster care, I'll never forget it. It was 7th grade. And crazy thing is, I'm up here in High Park, right? Visiting right now. I just met with my teacher, Mrs. Simonetti, at Everready Diner yesterday. We had dinner, and she reached out to me on Facebook. So it was like it's just crazy how, and we're going to get back to that in a minute, but when I went into foster care, it was 7th grade. We're going to the dance, put on the cologne. Kevin, who owns the New York branch, we're playing ball. We're shooting ball in the basketball court in the middle of the trailer park. We got the community center, and dude, these cops come in. And it's orchestrated. They come in, they go down each road, they come into the community center. I'm like, oh shit, they're here for somebody, Of course, they come over to me and they're like, hey, Pat, is your mom home? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, you need to come with me. And I'm like, what did I do now? Because I was always in trouble.
Yeah.
My mom was calling the police because, something was going on, somebody was beating us up. I remember the teenagers one year, they went around their mobile home at night with baseball bats, just hitting the side of the mobile home to scare the crap out of my mom. And so I was always like the dirtbag in the park, like picking on me, I wasn't Mr. Popular. And it was like, I was going through the thrift store buying my clothes. I remember when Jordans came out, and it was like I went down to the thrift store and they were size 12. I'm like 7 years old. I'm like, I'm getting those, size 12 shoes.
But you've been a rebel since day one. You've always kind of gone against the grain?
I have, yeah. And it was like, I'm going to push my limits a little bit, and I was always just pushing back on the universe, if you will. You know what I mean? Like things would come at you, and me and my mom would go downtown to Carol's gift shop, and my mom really, I think, made me into an entrepreneur because she would make little index cards, fold them in half, and put little shamrocks with them, and we would sell them for $1.50 down at Carol's gift shop so she could buy cigarettes, right? Even though we didn't have food, but it's all good.
So you've been in sales forever.
Forever, that's right.
Business owner, you were the salesman. Her business was cigarettes, and she was getting them.
We were selling them, that's right, yeah.
So you go in there at 7th grade. And then what is that experience like going from the trailer park to a foster care?
Dude, it was rough. Like I experienced my first anxiety attack, right? It felt like somebody stabbed me in the chest, and I was skinny. Like I'm, a little bigger now because my 15-year-old daughter's making cookies, but that's besides the point, right? But no, I was skinny. I didn't eat very well. It was like cereal and stuff. So when I went into foster care, it was an emergency foster home, and I think it was in Fishkill. And I had no idea because I was never out of Dover. Like Dover was my life. Like I didn't know anything outside of Dover. Yep. And so when I went into Fishkill, I had no idea where I was, right? Going through my head, like in the Social Security car, I remember like, I'm about to bounce because I know the woods like the back of my hand. And I'm like, I'm gonna go somewhere. But no, dude, it was like a ghost town. I was like, no, none of my friends were there. It was really weird. And I just remember being in my head like, I'm scared to death. Like, where am I going? My mom was fighting the police on the front porch. And I was like, I had to be the parent. I was always the parent. Because my mom had the mental illness, right? So she's fighting the cops. I'm like, Mom, I had to calm her down so she didn't go to jail, right? And so they're like, get, a week's worth of underwear and socks, and then you're coming with us. And I'm like,
What was it that
real.
sparked you having to go into?
So she kept me out of school. I was on PINS, Parents in Need of Something. Principal came actually on a short bus to come get me to go to school. Punched him in the face. Ran, I hid, and I was always kind of in trouble and stuff like that. And so they were like, you got to go into foster care. I wasn't eating well. So my best friend, Eric Sloss, lived right in the trailer next to me. So, and they're actually my foster parents now, but I would always go over there and I would, eat or whatever it was. They would always help us out, me and my mom.
Supplement what you needed.
Exactly, yeah. And so they were always there for us. And I just remember going to that first foster home, and it was like, dude, like somebody stabbed me in the chest. I didn't know what was going on. And she thought that I didn't want to eat the food, so I got punished. And I was like,
At the new
foster home.
So walk us through that a little bit. One day they just say, hey, we found new parents for you. And they drop you off at someone's door.
Yup.
And you're like, oh, hi, Mom.
Yeah, like, well, I wasn't about to call her mom,
Right,
but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
But yeah, it's like, what the heck? So I got to eat dinner with this new family.
What age were you at that point?
So I was 7th grade, so I don't even...
Oh, you are a rebel. 7th grade, you're 13, 14.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
and
like
so
13, I think at 13, right?
And
so,
you look like you were probably a big kid back then, tall.
I was tall. I just hit puberty, right?
Yeah.
So I jumped up, right, in height. My voice got a little deeper because it was funny. We used to be like, hey guys, want to go play Tonkas in the dirt? Like, my voice was like that, But when I went to that home, it was like, it was a shock. I had to fit in. Like, they had an older son. He was listening to, DMX and all that stuff. So I kind of fit in a little bit with him. Like, he had the subwoofer, and that was all becoming popular. So I was like, all right, kind of connect with him. But that only lasted maybe a couple months, and then I went into a actual foster home. So I would have to meet my mom in Poughkeepsie in a room with glass all the way around it. And it was like, I had to watch what I said, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, what the heck? Are you going to see your mom this month? Once a month I would see my mom, and I would check in on her. So when I went into this other foster home, this is insane, but you're about to hear this. So when I went in, they were like, hey, we found a new family for you. I'm like, great, because this is an emergency one, right? They just kind of, roll the kids through. And so they're like, hey, we found somebody. I'm like, all right, it is what it is. What do you want me to do? Like, well, you're going in with this new family. They never had a teenager before. And I'm like, okay, well, now I knew why, because they wanted them to do their dishes, clean their floors, do their laundry, dig the posts every day after school to make a freaking chicken fence. I did that.
So you were like an indentured slave?
That's what it felt like. So
that is wild.
Yeah, and I had to dress in preppy clothes going in at that age. I got picked on, I got beat up, I was in fights
and you don't
every
have
school.
any type of person to go to to tell them that, right? Hey, I'm in this house and they're using me for free labor.
So listen to this. So I go in and they give you a counselor and all this stuff. And I'm not saying foster homes are bad, because there are very good foster homes out there. And, and that's great, but there are ones that I feel like take advantage and they want that monthly money. And so I'm going in, right, and I meet with my mom, and this is where Kevin, actually, in the New York branch, saved my life, dude, because at this point I was like, nothing's going for me, the world's against me, I barely see my mom. And so I went in, and I was out working on the fence one day, and I got into some briars, and I had no idea. Remember, growing up in the trailer park, that's all I knew. Now I'm out playing in the woods, I get some briars, I get this weird rash. Well, I wake up my foster mom from a nap, and she flips, dude. Why'd you wake me up from my nap? You're punished. So I got punished for letting her, like, I had no idea what was going on. So I tell my mom that in the next meeting in the room. Guess what? Social services tells the parents, punished again. And then, not to mention, the dad was a big, like, kind of looked like a biker dude, big beard, on steroids because of his shoulder, and he was like taxing people at this time. And so I changed the channel one time on the remote. He hit me over the remote. I couldn't use my 2 fingers. Told my mom what was going on. Punished again. So then
Who's
I'm
punishing you? The
parents,
again.
the foster
because
parents.
he's reporting to his mother.
But the mother's not going anywhere, doing anything with that information. It's just getting misconstrued, and you're getting screwed again.
Yep. Yeah. So they would report it to the parents, then I would get in trouble, that kind of stuff. So then I'm there, like literally digging holes after school. I mean, there's a lot more in there. But I remember like Kevin, he sent a letter and it had $5 in it. Like, we're young, right? He had $5 and he's like, dude, whatever you're going through, you know what I mean? Because I'm having suicidal thoughts,
Yeah, I mean,
and this
you're
isn't the first time.
trapped at that point.
But I'm like trapped. I can't do anything. I'm getting beat up at school. I'm going to different schools, and every school, guess what? You got to fight somebody to be, you know what I mean, to
Yeah.
kind of fit in.
in
So,
place, yeah.
I mean, I went through multiple schools through foster care. So that was just it. And then my uncle ended up, I was telling my mom what was going on. So my mom was telling my uncle, but my uncles were alcoholics. I'm pretty sure they had a little mental illness now. They're not here anymore. They passed away from cirrhosis of the liver. We talked about earlier why I don't drink.
Yeah.
I used to drink a lot.
Yeah.
So did my uncles, but they died from cirrhosis. I found my Uncle Rick in the trailer. I was riding dirt bikes with Kevin up in the park, and the cops were outside. Sparky's out. My dog had a Rottweiler pit bull, and I'm coming down the road, and the cops are outside. They're like, nobody's answering the door. The dog's out. Like, so I had to go in through the window, and sure enough, I went around the counter. He was going towards the bathroom. There's blood on the fridge. He's dead.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, died from cirrhosis of the
You
liver.
have seen a lot of hardship as a
Crazy
young
story.
Yeah.
person.
How long were you in that foster home? So you 13, 14, you move into the first one, and then how many foster homes and how long until you're out?
Yeah, so I went from that, so the emergency to the full-time foster home, and I don't remember, to be honest, I don't know the times exactly. I try to actually remember, like, not remember that stuff,
Block it
because
out.
I think it was like a self thing, like I make people laugh. I think that's like a coping mechanism, if
For
you will,
sure.
right? So I don't remember exactly the dates. I do remember moving in 8th grade with my Uncle Rick, and then we were renting in a small apartment. I was living on a pull-out couch, and he adopted me, but he was like hiding the alcohol, and we would go to the American Legion, post 1575 in Katona. I was going to Somers at this time. And we talked about it, my IQ, right? So Dover said I had a 68 IQ. Like, they would test me and all this stuff, and I was in special ed and all this stuff, and they just kept passing me, and they never, like, to this day, dude, I'm not good at reading, right? So I got to do Audible, I'm reading books, and like, I'm self-educating now because I know, you could be better, right? As long as you do whatever you put your mind to. That's what my mom always told me growing up. You can do whatever you want in life if you put your mind to it, period. And so I live by that now, you know what I mean? It's like, if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. Hell or high water, let's go. Yeah. And so when I was in foster care with my Uncle Rick, we got into a big fight actually before we passed away. And I was driving now at age of 17. I was driving from Dover because we moved back in with my mom because the landlord had passed away. And we couldn't rent that apartment anymore. So now I had to go back. I'm not supposed to be living with my mom. I'm driving an hour and a half down to Somers. I was working at a grocery store there to make money. I had my first car at that time. And you're not supposed to drive on highways and all. I'm driving down those roads and stuff. And so a counselor found out when I was at Somers, and they were talking about putting me back in foster care. I was like, hell no, like, no way. So I told my Uncle Rick when I found out what was going on, I knew they would just show up, right? So I told my Uncle Rick, I said, look, I'm not going back to foster care. I'm moving in with my best friend, Eric. And I called Eric crying. I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going back to foster care. Like, I will die before I go back to foster care. Yeah. And so he's like, dude, talk to my mom. So I talked to Jody, and she's like, just come over here. We'll figure it out. Just come over here. And so I told my uncle, I walked in the trailer. I said, I'm leaving. He's like, hell no. He's like, 3 effing years. 3 years. I said, I don't care. I'm not going back to foster care. He chases me out of the house, out of the trailer. And I get in my car, and I start my car. He whips open the door, and I punch him in the stomach. And I throw it in drive. I run over his legs. I see him like, in the road. I'm like, I'm going to jail. I just ran over my family. I'm a piece of shit at this point. Like,
Big guilt trip.
Big guilt trip, right? So now I'm driving out of the park, dude, doing like 90, 100 miles an hour. It starts pouring down, raining. And this is a God thing because I get into High Park and I'm coming down Crum Elbow, and you know where the camp is right there?
Yep.
So I come around, and I'll never forget it, dude. I'm in a Chevy Cavalier. I'm like 1, 2, and drive. 2 would get up to 100. Drive, I'm hitting 120. I'm going around the corner at like 90. And I come around the corner, and the car just starts kicking out. It says slippery when wet on the side of the road. And I
Figure that out.
Yeah. and I see these headlights. So I'm sideways like this, driver's side, and I look, and I just see the fear in this lady's eyes that I'm coming at her like this. And I don't know, I closed my eyes, I pinned it to the floor, and I like come like this, sideways again, and I'm sliding. You know the rock wall and the trees line around there?
Yeah.
Dude, I hit the bark, and I slide sideways, and the car goes all the way to here and stops. And the lady's like, she stopped. She's like, are you okay? And I roll down the window, and I say, yeah, and I'm bawling, dude. I pin it again, because I'm like literally right around the corner. At this point, I like get in, I throw in the park, the car's like, shaking, I get out, I collapse on their stairs. And I'm just bawling, like I just ran over my uncle. I'm like, I'm going to jail. I feel I'm such a freaking, dude, like, I didn't care if I died
Sounds
at
like
that
this
point.
was rock bottom.
Dude, it was. Rock bottom.
Mental warfare, dude. Mental
That was a
warfare.
ride, bro. I'm sweating
Yeah.
right now just listening to that. So that was your
It
breaking
was-
point, and then you found stability in a new home, I
So,
assume.
yep, I started going to church. I went to Hyde Park Baptist Church. I met my now wife. She was the hot choir girl. So I followed her down to Bob Jones. That's what actually got me to South Carolina, because I was like, dude, we can't afford, to live in New York. Starting, I mean, it's expensive here, right?
Yeah,
so I was
of course.
like, what am I gonna do? Like, I have no education. What am I gonna do? So I already had a job, because when I went to Bob Jones University, when I followed her down, we went for 1 year. I almost got kicked out. So if you know anything about Bob Jones, they have demerits. So if your hair touches your ear, you get a demerit. 150 demerits, you get kicked out.
Oh my goodness.
And I never had structure, right? My mom was like, do whatever you want. Like, I did whatever I want. I got in trouble, whatever, right?
Yep.
And so when I went to Bob Jones, it was good for me, because
Yeah,
I had
you
structure, right?
needed structure.
And I needed it.
Yeah.
But I didn't really, obey it too well. But we came back, I think, and I had a CD in my bag. So if you have like a game rated over a certain amount, M for mature or something, you get demerits. I got 300 demerits. So I got into a fight there. I got 300 demerits, 150, you get kicked out. They gave me 140 for the whole last semester. And I was like, all right, I got to do it, right? I got to hang in. So I hung in for a year, and ended up coming back. And me and Sheila ended up dating for like literally 2 months. And then we got married. I proposed to her right at Vanderbilt.
Wow.
On the water. And so I was like, look, I got a job lined up from a town student in Greenville, South Carolina. He said, come down. I knew how to drive the skid steer, so we did grading for new construction. It was booming in Greenville. I was like, all right. So I did that until 2000, like the beginning of 2006 in there. And then the painter was prepping the houses to wash them, right, for getting them for show. I asked Al McLaren, I was like, hey man, what are you paying the painter? Because I was making $500 a week. And I was like, what are you paying
What year
him?
is this around?
This is 2006.
2006. okay.
Yeah, so the beginning of 2006. And so they, obviously the economy, housing started going down that 2008, but it was really started in 2006. So they ended up going out of business, and I was prepping the houses. So I bought a pressure washer. I was putting it in and out of it. I was doing auto detailing, whatever it was. And then they docked my pay $1 because something happened with it. I think his son didn't do something. He didn't show up on time. He's like, where are you? I was like, I'm waiting for Alvy. He didn't show up, so I got docked an hour. So I'm like, this is dumb. I'm out. Like, I'm just gonna go do my own thing. And so I always wanted to do my own thing down there. So I did mobile auto detailing and then pressure washing. And I did that blood, sweat, and tears, man.
You
Door
started on
knocking.
your own. You were doing it on your own.
Completely on my own.
You were door knocking to start the business?
You know it.
That's what I like
you
to
know
hear.
it.
And where did you
That's good
figure
shit.
that tactic out? Sort of by yourself?
Just old school, yeah. Just going door, because when we did it down in Dover with my mom, I used to, we did a little things in the trailer park, like we did lawn care and stuff like that, mowing the lawns, and I got Kevin into it, so we were mowing lawns there. So it was just, what I knew down in the roots,
you
right?
just knew to naturally acquire your leads by going out and finding them.
Going out and finding
Well,
them.
it seems
Yep.
like the best thing foster care taught you was independence and just being able to mentally get through things no matter how hard they were. So how was the beginning of opening up a power washing company from startup in an area you've never been to, or shouldn't say never been to, but area you didn't grow up in?
Yeah,
Place you
yeah.
go to.
So, yeah, I didn't
what
know
is your
anybody.
driving force? What is your thought when you're starting these companies? Like you said, and are you still thinking about these teachers and people telling you couldn't? Is that
It was in the back of my head. It really was. But it was like, I don't know anybody. I didn't have any friends really, down in South Carolina. So it was like, I just got to get out there. I got to, I remember reading something on the forums. We had the forums back then. We didn't have Facebook or any of this stuff. And so I remember the forums, and they were like, hey, hand out flyers. And I remember I was going to hand out 500 flyers. Like, this is funny because you don't know what you don't know. I'm like, dude, I'm going to hand out 500 flyers. I'm going to be so freaking busy, right? Like, and I'm like, you hand out 500 flyers and you get like one call.
One.
If you're lucky.
One.
Like, if you're lucky,
Dude,
right?
every 100 cards I hand out, I get one phone call.
So we have it down to science now. Doing this so long, we put out 40,000 flyers a month. We do clip flyers. I invented the clip flyer in our industry. We throw them on the driveway. It's non-pressure roof cleaning. They get it, and then they're like, non-pressure roof cleaning. What do? They turn and they look right at their roof. It brings it in the house. We get one call per 98 flyers now. In the busy season, one call per 600 flyers in our off season. So we got the message down to message over brand. And then on our yard signs, it's brand over message. But we'll get into that in a minute. So starting off, had no freaking clue how to, you know what I mean? Like I knew how to make a customer happy. I knew how to wash their house, whatever it took, right? Yep. But I didn't know business. I was 20 years old. Didn't know anything about business. So 4 years. So fast forward a little bit to 2008. I went to my first NCE. It was National Cleaning Expo in Charleston. And it was 4 hours away. Couldn't afford the hotel. I had 2 kids at this time. They were literally had a 1995 Astro van. 2 kids' car seats were ratchet strapped to the backs of the front seats. Water tank in the back. Ratchet strap, right? So they were welded though, so it was safe. All right. But we ended up dropping our 2 kids off at her parents' house because when we moved down, we kind of got them to come down to South Carolina too. So we dropped our 2 kids off. We went to the event. I put a mattress in the back of our event. Again, it's going back, right? Hell or high water, I'm gonna make this work. Right. So I was like, look, we can't afford the hotel. She was like, good with it. I'm like, all right, we're gonna sleep in the van. And people at the event remember that. They're like, did you sleep in your van? You know, I was like, yeah. And one guy actually, I don't know his name to this day, but he let us use his shower, which was like amazing.
Awesome. In the hotel?
In the hotel, yeah. He's like, dude, you can use our shower. I was like, dude, that's amazing, thank you. And so went to that event, dude, and one guy was like, I'm sitting in like the 3rd row back, and me and my wife were like, I don't know, we're scared to death, right? 22. And so there was a guy in front of us was like, yeah, I sprayed this stuff on the roof and it took me like 2 hours and I walked away with $1,200. And at that time I'm making, $600 a week. Maybe.
That's 2 weeks.
Yeah. And I'm like, shut that. This guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, right? Sure enough, I started researching it, right? And I got into roof cleaning. So that event changed my trajectory.
It's amazing. And
so now it's crazy thinking back. Like, so that was 2008. Started going to more events. I got a business coach in 2010 out of Florida, and we ended up in 2012 doubling and tripling our company.
It's wild.
You're always one person away from changing your life, and that was the one person.
Another thing
That's
I'm
right.
noticing about you that's very different, what really sets you apart from other people is that even when you're down, right? You're a young guy, you're not making a lot of money. Most people in that situation, they just keep working and working and working, but they do not further educate themselves and they don't learn how to get themselves into a better position. You were living in a van and you went to an expo. That's what sets you apart from other people. That's crazy. What is it that drove you to continue your own education and seeking out how to do things better and better? Because a lot of people don't do that, and I think that's their biggest mistake is they don't invest in themselves. What was driving you to do that?
That's a good question. And I think it was just providing for my family. Like, I wanted to provide for my family, right?
You had
I wanted
2 kids at that time. You're
2 kids.
21 years old.
Yeah, 2 kids. And so I wanted to be the dad that I never had, right? I wanted to set them up for success. And I think you have that inside of you. You know what I mean? Like, we have that burning fire of like, there's something better. There's something out there. How do I grab it? And then you read these books like the E-Myth, right? That changed my life, right? And it was like, it changed my paradigm because it was like, you are, around your 5 circle or whatever it is, you're 5% of the people you hang out with. So if I hung out with the people that were in the trailer park that are in jail right now or dead, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I knew there was something better, and I knew I had to, change my mindset, because once we change us as entrepreneurs, our businesses will change. Yep. And I think I just saw that, you know what I mean? Like, in people and other business owners. Like, when I worked at Eddie's Auto Repair, I remember standing there and I learned lessons, and I kind of like, I pay attention, if you will, right? And when I was at Eddie's, I was standing there and we were doing the gas station, but I used to go there every day after school, and he's like, no, I don't have a job for you right now. I'm like, dude, I'll sweep this parking lot right now. and finally gave me the chance to sweep the parking. They're like, dang, that looks good. I said, dude, let me paint the curbs. All right, let me do that. That looks amazing. And I worked my way up to pumping gas. But I remember standing there, it's cold. I used to get the drinks for the mechanics. And I'm standing there, I got this zip up, jacket, and I got my hands in my pockets. And Eddie would come in, and dude, Eddie's hilarious, right? And so he came in one day, he's like, Pat, what? He's like, what are you doing? I was like, dude, I'm waiting for the next guy. I'm going to pump his gas. I check his oil. Like, I put license plate on, Eddie's auto repair. I'm waiting. He's like, no. He's like, put your hands up. And I was like, what? I was like, all right. So I took my hands out of my pocket, put my hands up. He took the stapler off the desk. He stapled my pocket shut. And he said, look, Pat, he's like, I know you, and I don't want anybody to judge you on your character because you're a hard worker. He's like, when you're standing there, what are you doing? Right? And from then on, I swept the floor. If I swept it, just 30 seconds, minute, right? And I teach that to my team now because everybody watches.
Yeah.
What a freaking lesson.
That's crazy.
He staples your pockets closed.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah.
Get your hands out of your damn pockets, boy.
Exactly.
Such a
Fucking
powerful
moving.
way to learn it, though. He's like, yeah, like even though you thought you were doing everything you could, and you thought you were doing your job right and everything, he's like, dude, you can always be doing something better.
Always.
Which is a huge lesson to learn in business, entrepreneurship, and especially when you're bootstrapping a company from zero, there's always more work to do. Work never ends. It's a eyes open, eyes closed. So 2000, I think you said 14, 16 is when you started doubling your business?
Yep.
Okay. And you had a business coach. How
Yes.
was that like? I hired a business coach recently, like 6 months ago, actually. We use the same guy now.
We
And
had him
that's
on the
changed a
podcast
lot
as
of
well. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That's changed a lot of my personal life.
Okay.
Which what you said is, when your personal life changes, when you change, your business changes with you.
That's right.
So what was it like hiring the business coach? Did that have a big impact?
Dude, it was life-changing because I didn't know anything about business. CRM, right? Tracking the leads, the production side. I didn't know about advertising, right? So I saw him at an event, and when he opened his third branch, Delray in Florida, he did $187,000 his first month. I'm doing $125,000 a year.
And he was doing power washing.
And he's doing exterior cleaning, correct. And so he had a different model on it, right? And I'm like, I need to know that. Like if I can, make a shortcut, collapse time, if you will, and get his knowledge and I'm paying it out. It was my last $4,000. No joke, dude. I was going to throw in the towel and I was going to go work for the railroad in South Carolina because I was like, it's rice and beans in the winter. If washing, you're not washing when it's snowing out, right? And so it was rice and beans in the wintertime. And then once March hit, I'm like balls to the wall. So I was going to actually throw in the towel, but I got this quote, Winston Churchill quote, never, never give up. And I get goosebumps right now, and I have the plaque. My mom gave me the plaque. I was hearing it, and I remember talking to my wife. I'm like, I keep getting this quote, never, never give up. And she's like, I am too. And I'm like, shut up. She's like, somebody just told it to me. I heard it on the radio. I'm like, I think God wants us to keep doing this. And so I spent my last $4,000. I picked him up from the airport in my Astro van. My wife's sitting on a 5-gallon bucket because we didn't have a back seat. And he gets in, and it's funny because he looked at pictures. He's like, oh, I'm actually going to an actual company. And you fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. So I took my company picture in front of my apartment complex. I'm living in an apartment complex. And so I took it in front of the garages, and I had my neighbor coming in it. My wife's brother was in it,
God,
right? I didn't have any
actors.
employees.
Some B-roll players.
Yeah.
Love that.
And so he's like, I'm actually going to a company. And dude, I was subleasing one office from my t-shirt company, and like we're doing it all there. And I was like, we had to make it happen. Mm-hmm. So the last $4,000, hired him, and I said, I'm investing in myself. Like, let's go.
That's
Huge.
fire. And then you made it. So a couple things there. One, it's always that last shot you have to take, right? We knock on doors. You were knocking on doors. It's always that last door you don't want to knock on where you make the appointment.
Where the success
It's always
happens.
the last thing. When you're ready to
Yes.
give up, it's always when it happens. Another thing you said that was really important, and I think the way you phrased it was collapse time. That's what you gain when you get a good coach. They went through all the bullshit. So if you can sit with them and listen to them, you get to skip all of that. And you've said that before, but it's just amazing to hear from another person who's experienced it. And then I just want to double back real quick, and this is going real far back, but the question's in my head. Was that the last time you saw your uncle when you ran over his legs?
It was. Yeah. It sucked, dude, because I never got to say sorry, And when I saw him, it was like, what the heck? Because we were fighting, you know, we didn't talk after that. And then he passed away.
But you're a holy man and you believe he's in a better place now and you're doing work for him and you're doing good for him.
That's right.
All right. Well,
Yeah, man.
but that's hard to live with. That's
It is.
tough.
And I had to bring my mom down. My mom had the mental illness. We moved her down with me. She actually lived with us when we first got married. That's a whole story in itself. That's another podcast, right? But, you know, you got to give back, you know what I mean? And you got to support your family. no
How
matter
has
what.
that shaped you now?
What, bringing her down and all those things?
No, that incident with your uncle, because that will change you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sucks, you know what I mean? But I think you got to seize the moment, you know? And it brings it back to us meeting. Like, you got to make things happen, right? You got to, opportunities are going to come. Are you going to take care? Are you going to accept them, or are you going to close the door on them? And I think with those things, it's like, man, I wish I could go back and just say, call him and say, dude, I love you, man. You know what I mean? But I didn't get that opportunity. So now when I look at opportunities, I say yes. You'll notice I say yes a lot.
Yeah.
Say yes to everything. You know?
You got to, right? Because you never know. And the way I explain it is, I've been doing this now for 17 years, and you get above the clouds, and you know, you take one ladder above the clouds. Now there's 2 ladders. Which one? You have the choice. Which one you're going to go up? Then you get above that one. There's 3 ladders, right? And you meet people, and then they bring you into their circle, and you level up each time. You know, and you want to be around successful people. If you're not around successful people and you're the smartest person in the room, get the freak out of the room, period. You know, because I want to be learning always. I'm a sponge.
You have a sales boost, which is essentially a conference you put on where you have guys come in, and that's kind of your whole MO now, is you've become a sales guru essentially. So what is that conference like? I know it's got it coming up in March 30th, but tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so it's not like your typical conference. It's hands-on. Nobody does this in the industry. I go out and put myself on the line for you guys, and I go out and actually do the sales right in front of everybody. So it's going on 6 years. So again, going back to when I was in the crowd, right? I want to empower people now. I want to show them, and I want to give back. And so I opened it up to the public. The reason I started Sales Boost was for when we started doing branches, and Kevin in Binghamton joined us. I was like, dude, we need something where they can come every year and get more sales experience, because nothing happens in your company unless a sale is made, period, right? And so I knew I needed to get really freaking good at sales, and I was young. I remember I had to wear glasses, like I wore the button-up shirt, because people were like, you're the business owner, right?
Yeah.
I still don't tell people I'm the business owner now, because they don't believe me, right?
Yeah.
And so when I started doing all that, the door knocking, the clip flyers, the marketing, right? I started honing in on those things that, why am I winning? I started tracking my KPIs. I started looking at what lead, you know, how did you hear about us? Clip flyer, yard sign, truck sighting, right? And then I started pouring my advertising back into what was working.
Right.
And so I'm a big boots on the ground. You know, I talked about Goya earlier, right? Get off your ass and just go get it. So I teach Goya marketing. Get off your ass marketing. Don't just do Google. Don't just do Facebook and expect the phone to ring, right? No, get off your ass, get out there, knock some doors, make shit happen, right? And that's what I did. And so when I launched Sales Boost, it was for the team. And then I was like, we need to open this to the public because it's doing really well. And so it helped pay for the event. It helped the guys come down. We actually do a private event for just the PPW members. We do go-karting. We did Top Golf the last time. And we have a bat. And the crazy thing is I had a business opportunity in Louisville, Kentucky. And I went to the bat, whatever it is, I forget what it's called, but the Louisville Slugger.
Yeah.
And I had a bat made with our logo. So now we passed the bat around. So whoever had the best year was like top tier, investing in everybody in the branches and helping everybody, not just revenue, but what else are you doing? How are you contributing to the community? And so whenever we pass the bat around each year, they get their thing engraved, their branch engraved.
Wow.
So
that's
it's all
a
about
huge
people.
culture building tool. So you obviously have an excellent culture.
I wouldn't say excellent, but we work towards it, right? We really have a camaraderie. We're a family. And, you know, I hear people say culture all the time. And it's hard. Culture is very hard, right? Yeah. But you got to have your mission, value, purpose. And I have it written out, but do we all like know it by heart? No, right? No. I can't, you're not going to meet my employee in Seattle, Washington and say, what's his, you know, thing? And he's not going to be able to recite it, right? But my goal eventually is to have every single one of our team members to recite it. Because you'll notice in there at the very end, of precision, at precision, it says never, never, never give up. And that's one of the little acronyms. Because you can't. Why? Why give up? There's so much that this world has to offer. And if you can bless somebody else, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
We just posted actually a reel today on my Instagram that was when I started what I was doing now and I was a sales rep. When I was getting into it, it was in the beginning for me, it was just make enough money to make money and live. And then it turned into, okay, I want to make a lot of money so I can afford cool shit. And then it became, I want to do this to help other people. And I was saying when it became that, when my mission was like, I want to change other people's lives, I never had more energy. I never worked harder. I never did more things inside of my business than when it started to become about other people. As soon as it's about other people and helping other people, I would give up on myself before I say, hey, Tony, I'm going to do this for you, and I'm never going to give up on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So mission is huge because once you have that in line, then you have this thing, this whole goal you're working towards. And I would say, not to toot my own horn, but we got 50-something sales guys in this office in my company. Sales guys, and our culture is phenomenal because we have these guys that are hungry. They want to help each other. They had to go out and earn it. Everyone in our sales team started at knocking on doors. There wasn't, you're good at sales? Okay, cool. You don't have to knock on doors. We'll give you leads. No. You had to go earn it, and because they earned it, now they respect everyone else. They respect the office, the company, the culture. You know what I mean? So I think that's a huge part of the puzzle. And I don't really have a question to end that part, but I was just saying
I love what you said because your mission and your personal why, I think, changes, right? Because it was like, for me, it was, I need to make $1 million, right, in pressure washing, because nobody did it in pressure washing. I'm like, I'm going to make $1 million. And when we did, now you're like, now what, right? Okay, what's the next thing? Well, now it's about, the community. It's about giving back. And I think your why will change as you grow because you're going to grow as a human being. And my why changed. It was like, no, it was about my staff now. Because exactly what you said is like, I want them, and there's this book, it's called, Manager. What's it called? Shoot.
Who's it by? You remember?
I don't. I'm trying to remember the name.
I just read The Dichotomy of Leadership.
That's a really good one. This one's like I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's about a manager and the dream manager. That's what it is. It's called the dream manager. And so it's about your team and what their dreams on. And it helps you as a leader to coach, not on me, not on the company goals. I want to coach you on your goals. What are your goals? Because if you're not hitting the mark, I can say, hey man, I noticed you're not going to hit your goal this week. How can I help you? It's a different, right? Not, hey, you're not going to hit your sales goal. The company's, it's not this. It's how can I help you? And so the dream manager talks about, do you want to buy a car? Do you want to buy a house? How can I help you do that? Because then they're hungry, like you said. And I love that. You
work for your guys, you not the other way around. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, in a good, I think that's the difference between good culture and bad culture. Is you have bosses that will reprimand you for not performing, and then you have culture like us where if you're not performing, we're there to help you. What's going on? How can we make it better?
Yeah. And it's not all about the money necessarily. It's about the effort. So like with my sales team, when they go get so if we have a company lead or they go out and they flyer and they have a lead come in and we're like, hey, we got a lead out here, they have to come back with 2 leads. So they have to replicate that lead,
Well, I like that.
Yeah, because when you go out to the quote, guess what? That person wants it. I guarantee the neighbor does, right? And you're already out there. You already spent the gas to get out there. Get off your ass, go knock on the neighbor's door and say, hey, by the way, Mrs. Smith just signed up. I can give 5 neighbors while I'm in the community an extra $50 off. They're like, hey, and if you don't want it, and this is what I say, and if you don't want it, I completely understand. I know the neighbor will. Right?
The old takeaway.
The old takeaway.
That's right. Leveraging your time and effort right there.
That's right.
That's smart.
So you got to do those little things, right? And we talk about that in Sales Boost, and we talk about the things that worked for me, genuine things that worked that I did. And again, I'm always learning, right?
Right.
But the thing about Sales Boost is different because we go out on site. So we're going to have over 150 people at this event. I rented 2 56 passenger buses, coach buses, and we're going to go out to a community and we're going to do 4 quotes on site, and we're going to break up into groups. So we have smaller 30 people, 35 people groups. They're going to have a workbook that we actually had to measure. Like, what are the 5 things that you look at before you even talk to the homeowner before you go in? I have a buyer's guide that we send out. We have Ask the Seal that we send out from every rep, their background check. Right? So we break down the barriers before they even get to the quote. They look at our website. They buy from whom they like and trust, right? So my story is on our website. You know, do we give a percentage back to the community? Heck yeah, right? Because they're not buying because they want their house washed. They're buying because they like and trust me and my cause. And I think that's different too. So we're gonna show them I don't hold anything back from the basics all the way into commercial. And we do a lot of commercial, a lot. We go, we have 11-hour bubble. We go to Pensacola, Florida, Tennessee, Texas, and we do large apartment complex, $150,000 jobs.
Wow.
Holy smokes. How much of your business is commercial compared to residential?
So we do 60-40. So we do 60
commercial.
residential.
Oh.
Yeah, 60. Because I always say, so in exterior cleaning, residential pays the bills, commercial goes into the bank, right? That's what buys the trucks. Yeah, we're talking. I remember my first commercial job, dude, it was like $42,000. And it was in Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. And dude, me and my wife are like chest bumping. We're so excited. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, my first one. But another crazy story is we ran out of money. I had my first truck. We didn't have the staff to do my first commercial job, and I had a Ranger. I was doing the roof cleaning, and my sales rep, and we hired a temp agency guy to get this job done. So they're washing the building. I'm doing the roof cleaning, and we get halfway. It's a 2-week job. We get halfway through, and I was renting a little Days Inn or whatever it was, extended stay hotel, and dude, we ran out of money. And my wife's like, because it was only me, right? No residential crew at this time. And I said, we ran out of money. So I was going to the gas station every day and filling up. And my one Ranger was wrapped. We did the full wrap on it, non-pressure roof cleaning. On Friday, I'm like, Lord, what do I do? Like, are we just gonna pack up, go do residential, then come back? And that looks bad, you know what I mean, on a commercial level. Went to the gas station. Some guy goes, roof cleaning? He's like, nobody does roof cleaning around here, but my roof is dirty. He's like, would you give me a quote? And I'm just like, yeah, right?
Now.
I'm like, we're actually down the road right now doing a large apartment complex that's cleaning the roofs. I said, I can give you a quote on Saturday, we can do it on Sunday, and I'll keep working. I'm like, holy crap, right? So down to the wire, dude. And like the
Magic.
$500 bucks.
how it
All I need was $500 for the hotel for the next week.
Yeah.
So ended up cleaning the guy's roof on Sunday. It paid for the hotel for the next week, got the job done, got paid right away.
The resourcefulness
Wait,
is
why didn't you guys
incredible,
just
bro.
sleep in the Ford Ranger?
Right, right. I think my sales guy would be pretty upset. But
So I think it's also really interesting how you said earlier, we were talking about how you always want to educate yourself. And I think that teaching other people furthers your education. Right?
100%.
So I have this sick quote that I don't know where I got the quote from, but I altered it a little bit, right? And you think I'd be able to remember it, but I got to read it. The quote was, I hear, I forget, I see, or I remember, I do, I understand. And then I added, I teach, I master, right? And I think that that's what you're doing. And I think that a lot of the real high level sales guys always go back and they teach. And that's how they get to the master level.
I agree.
I think that's so interesting that we keep seeing that, and it sort of seems like it's the natural way of growth.
Yeah,
when you get
because
into
you're
it.
going over it now, right? When you teach it, it's different, right?
And you're refining
You're
it.
refining it, exactly. And then that's the thing about Sales Boost too, is we put it to the test. Like, this isn't stuff we just learned from a book or anything. Like, we're practicing what we preach too. And it gets better and better and better every time. But when you teach it, it's a whole different level. You do. I think the mastery comes in at that point.
All right, so coming from what you came from, foster care, struggling in a trailer park, you said you went broke after you made your first $42,000. What was it like to actually make it? Whether it was your first 100,000, million, whatever it was, when your business really became and grew what it was, what was that like for you?
Man, and I think it was breaking the million, right? It was
Yep,
breaking the million.
that's usually the number.
That's what was in my head, right? And it was like, don't get me wrong, like, it was amazing, but at the same time, it was like, oh crap, like, that wasn't that impressive, right? Like, you're always kind of looking, and I think you always think there's more, or there's more out there, and you're like, okay, let's go, what's next? But it did change for me. Like, when we broke the million, it was like, okay, cool, we got all the trucks, but there was still a lot of pain in that. And I think growing the business, there's a lot of pain, right? Like, even at $1 million, we had a lot of holes, right? Like, in staffing, in just the payroll, right? Now I got way more payroll, like making that and stuff like that. Now it was pulling the money out of the company, right? Because profit is for vanity, net is for sanity, right? And so, you think about these big companies, you're making it all, but that's fine, but you're really not making any money. Yeah. And I think when you're netting, and that's when we really started diving in, pulling the net out of the company, right? And then you start tracking the dollar per hour, when my guys got on site, when they left. And if we were making $300 an hour or more, I knew we were good. And then we started racing the guys, and it was fun competition, right? And you get that camaraderie. And we had this wall of fame/shame in the warehouse. And the guys would come in and they'd be like, oh, they're like, James got a touch up, right? And you made it fun. And I was like, dude, if you win this week, we're doing a video and you're going to tell everybody else on the team why you won. And, you know, one guy was like, dude, I'm on the money train, baby. You ain't catching me next week either. And it was just fun competition.
Yes.
We
So
make people
funny,
say,
dude.
quack, quack, I'm a duck. I can't sell solar worth a fuck.
Oh, I love it.
But we do also we used to, for whoever performed best of the week, you'd come in on Tuesday and we'd give you a gold chain.
Oh, yeah,
to
we
wear.
got this big gold chain that
fat
says
gold
Knox
chain.
Star on it.
Yes.
So,
Same shit like
That's-
that. But
it's all
Got
good
it.
culture building tools.
That's right.
So when you
And
got
it encourages you to work big time.
That's right.
when you got to $1 million though, you really didn't feel like you had made it because there was so much.
There's still so much. It was a
pulling you
mess.
back.
It was a
Yeah.
mess. Like, it looked good. Don't get me wrong. You get on Facebook, right? Facebook, and you're like, oh, you're making $1 million.
You got good
fake
quotes.
book.
Right?
You
Fake
got
book.
We got a
good quotes.
lot of good bars. I love it.
And then you're like, but in reality, dude, my friggin' dumpster fire behind me, right? Like,
Right.
and you're always working towards it. Like, I was able now to pay higher, right? I went through three levels of paying. I went from hourly to a hybrid, hourly plus a production bonus. And once they started getting that little production bonus, dude, the guys were like from $8,000 to $10,000 a week, right, on a truck. And I'm like, okay, we're on to something. So then we went to solely commission, and then the guys really, like, some of my guys made $34 an hour, right? And South Carolina is really freaking good. And so we started getting a higher caliber of team members, right? And we say employees. I really think of them as team members because they get a percentage just like I do, right? We're all working, we're all in this together, growing together. And so it's funny how you go through those different layers. But, you know, when I was doing it, it was like, dude, we were just piecing this thing together. And now we just get better and better and better. And then we started adding on the locations. And dude, we almost hit 5 million this year. That was the goal, right? We were like 4.9 something. So pretty awesome. But it's not about the money anymore. It's about the community. It's about them. Like, how do we help them, you know, empower people to do it? And that's where I think my mission is now, is like, it's not about the money. Like, we're set, you know what I mean, now. But now it's about how can we set up other
Spreading
people.
the love and changing people's lives. And that's what we're all about here. That's what it's become. I explained to you how we've been giving out blade legs to people and raising money for that. And, you know, his whole sole purpose is getting people to make money. Everyone this guy meets makes more money when they.
That's right. But that's a true leader too, right? So we become leaders or business owners, if you will, right? But a true leader is somebody who teaches others to do better than them. And then you grow, right? So that's a leader, man.
Yeah.
So I give you mad props.
Thank you. Yeah, man. It's what I have with, or what you have that I also have is that obsessiveness, tracking KPIs, looking at this, looking at the data. I want to know this. When do you do this? What is the number here? Like, it becomes this game that now when it's that, you could lay it out on the table and say, if I move this piece here, this gets better. If I do this, if I pull this back, and it becomes this fun game that is addictive. And then when you're making money and you can break from the shackles of you need money to survive, once it's past that point, then you can actually play the game and look at the chess pieces and get to the next level and start to do these things
Yes.
that you weren't able to do when you were broke and you had those limiting beliefs. You know?
Yeah, you were reactive back then. Now you're proactive. So now you know the numbers. And I think for business owners too, like watching this channel, they're like, but that's overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like, we become the technician in the very beginning. I want you to become the CEO, right? Now I can look at a P&L and know if I'm going to buy this company. I didn't know that 10 years ago, right? But once you start knowing the numbers, like, the weight is lifted off your shoulders, and now you can really play chess.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. So when you got to, you surpassed $1 million, now you're at 5 million, which is awesome a year. What were some of the limiting beliefs you had as a kid? Because when you're growing up in that kind of an environment, it's pinching pennies and don't speak for yourselves. You get in trouble for speaking up for yourself, saying that you got things were happening in foster care. So there's so many beliefs that are being planted in your brain that are like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And all those beliefs don't help in business.
No.
So one of the big things we always talk about is rewiring your mind, because one of our coaches taught us it. Like, you got to go back and de-wire everything and then rewire with the good shit. Yeah. So, I mean, you had to do a lot of that.
Dude, I still, to be honest, to this day, I do have a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? Because you're like, who the freak am I to be standing up now? Just came from Orlando, right? I was at the PWMCA talking to hundreds of entrepreneurs, right? And you're like, man, like, I was in that crowd, scared shitless, and now I'm up here on the stage, right? Yep. But I think you're right. You do have to rewire your brain, because, like, God can turn anybody into anything, right? Like, he can empower anybody. And it shows in the Bible, right? With Abel, right? Like, there's a lot of things in there. But for me, is like, he can use me. He can use my story, right? Like, coming from foster care, I can empower people. And I don't have my phone with me, but my why, right? You have your company why. I have a personal why, to empower entrepreneurs and underprivileged kids, right? To seek their dreams through sharing my story. And so I actually, when I go back, I'm going to be speaking to underprivileged kids at school. Oh, wow. Yeah, and I was always afraid to do that, you know, and I think you got to break out of your comfort zone. And when you do, right on the other side of that is success. No matter what, you know, and I want to break myself down. I want to be vulnerable, because when you are vulnerable, that's when success happens, right? Like, we all are human. We all fail. I failed so much in business, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to continue to fail, and I'm going to continue to learn those hard lessons. Sometimes I call it the stupid tax, right? I paid the stupid tax, you know?
I like that.
Yeah.
Hold on real quick. I know you're going to ask a question. What was the name of the school you went to again?
So Dover.
The college.
Oh, Bob Jones.
Bob Jones. Dude, this is crazy. I have a great friend of mine who lives in Delaware who owns a roofing company. Okay. And his name is Bobby Jones. And we used to own an old company I used to own called Master Networks. We used to own together. And the whole reason I'm thinking about this, his name is Bobby Jones. He went to jail for a couple years. He came out and started his own roofing company. And now he speaks to underprivileged kids and is almost the exact same storyline as
so
you.
Weird.
And his name is Bobby
No such thing as coincidences,
Jones.
Bro.
Dude,
That's
I
right.
just thought about it while you were saying that, but that's amazing.
Awesome.
That's the same college. And I know him.
Yeah.
I used to work with him. And again, he owns a roofing company, and he speaks to underprivileged kids, and he's on the whole same line. So,
Dude, so yeah, pouring in, man. That's
crazy. Not a coincidence.
That's right.
Go ahead,
All right. So at the end of every podcast, I always like to ask this question to everyone, and I feel like your answer can be as long as you need it to be, because
Sure.
Because you got a message, man. Your message is wild. But at the end of the day, what is your message to any and everyone out there, whether it be entrepreneurs or underprivileged kids? What is your message?
It's going to be, my message, I think, would be to, you know, don't believe what everybody tells you, right? You know down deep what is possible. And I think my message would be to Goya, you know what I mean? Like, just get out there.
Get off your ass.
I'm going to
you know?
start and steal that from you.
Yes, do it, you know? But that's it, is like, get off your ass. Don't let everybody puts their stipulations on you. And when you start making more money than them, it's like crabs in a bucket. They're going to try to pull you down, push out of that, right? And shoot for the stars. Go big, dream big, have that, you know, big audacious goal and go for it. Think big.
That's beautiful.
I love it, dude. Listen, Pat, you are an inspiration. You've done a lot of things that, so to speak, weren't in the cards for you, or wasn't meant to make it there, whatever people, you know, typically say. But what you've done is a true testament to just, like, if you just want something and you want it bad enough,
so
shit just happens.
I wanted to
you.
bring this up. You have this thing that, it's this syndrome that I've dubbed amputee madness, right? So every amputee we meet, because we do a lot of work in the amputee community, they're all wild. They're nuts. They're all doing way more than what you think an average person would be doing. And I got a very interesting comment on a post that I put up this morning. This kid talking about, you know, ever since he lost his leg, the world is telling you, oh, you can't do this now. You can't do this, and you can't do this, and you can't do this. And it just goes to what you were just saying. Like, don't listen to what you're being told you can't do. And a lot of the amputees we meet, they're like, fuck that. I can't do this.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything.
That's right.
And I feel like that's what you've done, but you didn't have to lose a limb. You just went through extreme hardship as a young person. And it'd just be amazing if these people could have this madness without having to go through all the bullshit. But
That's true.
it's a true testament to, growth happens when you're uncomfortable.
That's exactly right.
All right, thanks, Pat. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Appreciate you.